And when I began working in this field back in the 1970s, it really was feeling a bit like Sisyphus, pushing that rock up the hill and having it tumble right back down on top of us again. But there were some outliers, some individuals who were starting social enterprises around the nation. They didn't know about each other, and one of the reasons we brought the group together in 1998 for the first time was just to get them to meet each other, bring them into a tent and see what happened. We had 182 people. What happened was 6 of us threw our Rolodex. Anybody here remember what a Rolodex is? A few? Okay, thank you. I asked my students at Carnegie Mellon, and not one of them knew what a Rolodex was. We threw our Rolodexes on the table, and out of that, 182 people showed up at Colorado Springs for 2.5 days. Half of them loved it because it was completely open source. We put them in a room, we shut the door and said, figure it out. The other half wanted an agenda, and they were really angry with us for the whole 3 days. But out of that came a movement that began to blossom. As people began to network, began to talk with each other, began to feel that there was some kind of a future for this thing. And what was this thing? Well, it's not corporate social responsibility. It's not socially responsible investing. It's not cause-related marketing, really. Social enterprise is when a company's products and services themselves directly address a social need. It's a direct interaction with that need. There are wonderful things about CSR, corporate social responsibility. It sounds like Armageddon is marching toward us here, something like that, sure. Or Leviathan, perhaps. Whatever. But it's nice to use environmentally friendly practices, to not manufacture weapons or tobacco products. Those are all good things, but they're an indirect approach to social needs. Social enterprise is a direct approach. And when people began talking about this, it was not in the nonprofit sector. It started happening in the for-profit sector, mostly in the late 60s and into the 70s, as the private sector heard the social markets calling. And we began to see social enterprises growing up rapidly throughout the profit sector, the for-profit sector. And what did the nonprofit sector do during those 15 or 20 years? They were appalled. Most people in the sector were appalled. They thought it was making money off the backs of the poor. It was setting up a two-tier delivery system where you only serve those who can afford to pay. It was sacrificing quality in favor of some financial model. And there were a million reasons not to do this, because the nonprofit mentality was so embedded in the way we thought, and I was part of it. I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer. I worked for a center for people who were physically challenged. If the person I am today had come to talk to the person I was then, I hope I would have been polite. But that's all I would have been back in the mid-70s. It was just anathema to me, all of this stuff. But gradually things changed, and the entire sector began to understand it was costing more to run these nonprofits. Resources were flattening at best. Federal, state, local support was going down. More people needed help. Greater expectations from everybody. The pincer movement just closed in. And by the mid-90s, enough board members and staff members began to understand there was a reason to put on a new set of lenses. And we began to see these people trek to the Social Enterprise Alliance annual summit meetings. And we began to see them gathering in small groups around the country. Groups which are now burgeoning into a sizable audience like this, which would have been unthought of, unheard of, even in 2002, as Ed was talking. So I just wanted to welcome you all here and tell you that I think the future of social enterprise, and I'm not the only one who thinks this, will play a major role in helping address social needs all over the world. This is not just a United States or a Canadian or a North American phenomenon. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in India, in Bangladesh, it's happening in Japan, in England, in Brazil. Social enterprise is really, to me, one of the beacons of the future. And the Global Business Network, the people there have said it may be the single most compelling idea to come out of the business world in the first half of this century. Now that's hyperbole, of course. But there's something going on here, right? There's something that's happening. And I just had a brief chat with a young woman named Corey Allen here from Babson. She's an undergraduate. And I have to tell you, I teach graduate students at Carnegie Mellon, And I chair a group that works with high school social entrepreneurs in more than 20 countries. The wave is coming, folks. The young people, they really get it. They really get it. I tell my classes, I've been waiting for you folks for 40 years. They're coming. Those of us who've been here for a while, we have to get out of the way, clear the path, get out of the way. These people are going to change the world. And this entire movement, this entire social enterprise movement is something that is so exciting to the people who really begin to feel it and to begin to feel the others around them feeling it. So, if you haven't already registered, come to the summit in San Francisco at the end of April. We'll have 500 or 600 people there from all over the world, and you can get information on the Alliance website. That's enough selling for now, but be there. Don't miss it, because everything is changing. Everything's up for grabs.